Section 23 of An Elementary Greek Grammar by Kühner, O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Cynthia Moyer. An Elementary Greek Grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 23. Section 101. Pronouns. Inflection of pronouns in different dialects. 1. Personal pronouns. Ego. Singular. Epic. Nominative. Ego, egon. Genitive. Emeo, emu, mu. Dative. Emoi. Accusative. Eme. Ionic. Genitive. Emeo, emu, mu. Doric. Genitive. Emeus, emus. Dative. Emin. Aeolic. Nominative. Ego, egon. Dative. Emoi. Plural. Epic. Nominative. Hemes. Ames. Genitive. Emeon. Dative. Hemin. Hemin. Accusative. Hemeas. Ionic. Nominative. Hemes. Genitive. Hemeon. Doric. Nominative. Hames. Genitive. Hamon. Dative. Hamin. Aeolic. Nominative. Ames. Genitive. Ammeon. Dative. Ammi. Ammesi. Su. Singular. Epic. Nominative. Su. Tune. Genitive. Seo. Seu. Seoio. Teoio. Sethen. Dative. Soi. Toi. Accusative. Se. Ionic. Genitive. Seu. Seoio. Teoio. Sethen. Doric. Nominative. Tu. Genitive. Teo. Teos. Teus. Dative. Tin. Tein. Accusative. Te. Tu. Plural. Epic. Nominative. Humes. Genitive. Humeon. Humeion. Dative. Humin. Ummi. Accusative. Humeas. Ionic. Nominative. Humees. Genitive. Humeon. Dative. Humin. Accusative. Humeas. Doric. Nominative. Humes. Aeolic. Nominative. Ommes. Genitive. Omion. Accusative. omme. Ego, epic, dual. Nominative, noi. Genitive and dative, noin, noi, no. Su, epic, dual. Nominative, svoin, svoi, svoin, svo. Genitive and dative, svoin, svoi, svon, svo. Who, of him. Singular, epic. Genitive, heu, heo, heio, heeo. Hethen. Dative, heoi, hoi. Accusative, hee, min, he. Ionic. Genitive, heu, heo. Accusative, hee. Doric. Genitive, heus. Dative, in. Accusative, nin, sve. Plural, epic. Genitive, sveon, svon, sveon. Dative, svin, svi, svisi. Accusative, sveas, svas, sveas, sve. Ionic. Genitive, sveon, svon, sveon. Dative, svi. Accusative, sveas. Aeolic. Dative, asphi. Accusative, asphe. Reflexive pronouns. Emautu, seautu, and heautu have their components written separate in Homer as auton. The Ionic dialect changes the diphthong alpha upsilon into omega upsilon, and to this prefixes epsilon. Example: emeutu, seutu. Adjective pronouns. Possessive. Thine, sos. Doric, teos, also epic. His, hos, he, hon. Doric and Ionic, heos, on. Our, hemeteros. Doric and epic, amos. Aeolic, ammos, ammeteros. Your, humeteros. Doric and epic, humos. Aeolic, umos. There, sveteros. Aeolic and epic, svos. Demonstrative. Singular. Nominative, feminine in Doric is ha. Genitive epic, toio, two. Doric, to. Feminine, tas. Dative, Doric, feminine, ta. Accusative, Doric, feminine, tan. Plural. Epic, nominative, toi, tai. Also, Doric genitive, taon. Epic, tan. Doric dative, toisi, taisi. Epic accusative, tos, tos. Doric, teis, teisi. Hutos, haute, tuto, this. The Ionic inserts epsilon before the long endings of the oblique cases. Example, tu teu for tutu. Ekeinos, Ionic, keinos, so in Attic poetry. Doric, teinos. Iolic, keinos. Hode. Dative, epic, tois desi and tois desi instead of toiside and toiste. Relative. Hos, he, ho. Doric, ho, he, ho. The Doric retains throughout, except in the neuter, the form of the demonstrative for this pronoun. The same occurs in Homer and in other Ionic writers. Genitive, epic, and Ionic, hoio. Dative, heisi and heis instead of heis. Indefinite and interrogative. Tis, ti, any one, who. Genitive, epic and Ionic, teo. Epic, Ionic, and Doric, teo. Dative, epic, and Ionic, teo and to. Plural, accusative, neuter, assa. Genitive, teon. Epic and Ionic, dative, teoisi. Epic and Ionic, also toisi. Hostis, whoever. Hotis, hoti, hotti. Epic, genitive, hotio. Epic and Ionic, hoteo, hotteo, hottu. Epic, dative, hoteo, hotto. Epic and Ionic accusative, hotina, hoti, hotti. Epic, plural, nominative, neuter, hatina. Epic, genitive, hoteon. Epic and Ionic dative, hoteoisi. Feminine, hoteisi. Epic, accusative, hotinas. Neuter, hatina, and hassa. Epic. Section 102, Augment, Reduplication. 1. All dialects except the Attic suffer the omission of the augment in poetry. Example, luce for eluse. 2. Ionic prose even omits at pleasure the temporal augment. Example, ergasmai, hamai, for ergasmai, hemai. 3. Complying with the exigencies of the verse, the epic doubles the liquids, the mutes, pi, tau, and the breathing, sigma. Example: ellabon, essue. It neglects doubling rho for similar reason. Example: erexas. 4. The Doric contracts the augment epsilon with initial alpha into long alpha instead of eta. Example: ago, imperfect. Eagon, Doric, agon, Ionic and Attic, agon. 5. The second aorist, active and middle, is reduplicated in some verbs by the Ionic dialect. This reduplication is retained through all the modes. Example: kekamo, kekluthi. Section 103, Personal Endings and Mode Vowel. Active voice. First person. The original ending mu iota. Note: the conjugation in mu iota is, for good reason, regarded as the older form of the verb. End note. Is preserved by the epic in some verbs. Example: ktenomi, tuchomi. Second person. The epic, Aeolic, and Doric add theta alpha to the common ending eta sigma. Example: tithestha, ethelestha, for tithes, etheles. Rarely to omicron iota sigma of the optative, as didoistha. The Doric ending is epsilon sigma in second person indicative principal tenses. Boulues for boulues. Third person. The Doric has eta for epsilon iota. Example: didaske for didaske. The epic adds sigma iota to the subjunctive. Age si. First person plural. The Doric is epsilon sigma instead of mu epsilon nu. Tuptomes. Third person plural. The Doric is omicron nu tau iota, as tuptonti. This was the original ending, nu being the characteristic of third person plural, which was altered by the softer dialects into omicron upsilon sigma iota. The Iolodoric omicron iota sigma iota for omicron upsilon sigma iota also occurs, as naioisi for naiusi. See section 8, 4. For epsilon iota nu of pluperfect, the epic and Ionic have epsilon alpha contracted by the Attic into eta, as dea, eas, for eden, es, e. The dual endings of the historical tenses, first and second persons, are alike in Homer. Note: verbs that originally had the digamma do not contract the augment in Homer. Example: andano, fandano, imperfect, eandanon, edomai, phedomai, aorist, eisamenos. End note. Middle voice. Second person. The characteristic letter was sigma, which is retained only in the perfect and pluperfect. Thus, present, tuptesai, from which the Ionic excludes sigma, tuptei, contracted by the Attic into eta iota subscript. In conversational language, as appears from comedy, into epsilon iota. Hence, tupte or tuptei. In like manner is derived the second person of the historical tenses y. Thus, imperfect, etuptu, from etupteo, Ionic, for etupteso, and etupso, Ionic, etupsao, for etupsaso. Homer lengthens the Ionic epsilon omicron into epsilon iota omicron, as ereo. In the Epic, epsilon omicron becomes epsilon upsilon instead of omicron upsilon in some verbs, as epleu, archeu. First person plural. Mu epsilon sigma theta omicron nu and mu epsilon sigma theta alpha occur as endings in the dual and plural in poetry instead of mu epsilon theta omicron nu, mu epsilon theta alpha. Example, tuptomista. Third person. The new characteristic before the ending is changed by the Ionic and Epic into alpha. Example, ebebuliato, for ebebuliunto. The alpha, omicron, eta preceding nu are changed into epsilon. Ebulonto, Ionic, ebuleato. Peptantai, pepteatai. By this change of nu into alpha, the Ionic dispenses with the periphrasis of participle and ami in the third person plural perfect and pluperfect. Example, frazzo, pefradatai, third person perfect, for pefradntai, for which is substituted in common dialect pefrasmenoi esi. The ending eta sigma alpha nu, both indicative and optative, is shortened by the Ionic and Epic into epsilon nu. Example, etupen, for etupesan. Imperative, optative, subjunctive, and infinitive modes. 1. The imperative endings epsilon tau omega sigma alpha nu and epsilon sigma theta omega sigma alpha nu become, in the Doric and Ionic dialects, omicron nu tau omega nu and sigma theta omega nu. Example, tuptetosan, Doric, tuptonton, tuptesthosan, Doric, tupteston. Section 104. Contracted verbs. The Epic admits contraction, but much more sparingly than the Attic. 1. Verbs in alpha omega. The Ionic keeps the open form, but substitutes epsilon or omicron, sometimes omega, for alpha. Thus, horao, Ionic, horeo. It resolves alpha into alpha alpha, horaasthai, for horasthai. It omits the vowel preceding the first aorist ending, as hebosa for heboesa. In the dual, alpha epsilon are contracted into eta, Ionic. 2. Verbs in epsilon omega. Even in the common dialect, the open form is frequently retained. The Ionic contracts epsilon omicron into epsilon upsilon, as auteun, geneu. Verbs in omicron omega are likewise contracted by it into epsilon upsilon, as edikaeun for edikaeun. In Epic, epsilon is resolved into epsilon iota, as eteleeto. 3. The infinitive being originally epsilon nu, not epsilon iota nu, is without iota subscript in contractions, as timan from timaen, timaen. The Doric, contrary to its usual fondness for alpha, contracts alpha epsilon into eta. Thus, infinitive timein, also phoetetein. It contracts alpha omicron upsilon, and alpha omega into alpha. Example: penamen for penaomen, gelan for gelaon. Section 105, Conjugation in mu iota. 1. The imperfect, Epic, Ionic, and Doric of verbs whose characteristics are epsilon and omicron is formed according to contracted verbs. Example: etithe, edidu. This is almost limited to the second and third persons. This form is met with in the present of these persons also. 2. The Ionic has the optative omicron iota mu eta nu instead of epsilon iota mu eta nu. Example: theoimein. The endings of the historical tenses are shortened by the Epic. Example: ethen for ethesan, edon for edosan. 3. The Epic forms the imperative of histemi, hista or histe, instead of histathi. 4. The Ionic lengthening by the insertion of epsilon is common in these verbs. Example: histeo, dunei, for histo, dunai. For sigma iota in the third person, the Doric has tau iota, singular, and nu tau iota, plural. Example: tithenti, didonti, for tithesi, didusi. Histati, for histasi. 5. inflection of the verb ami, s, I am, in the different dialects. Indicative, present. Attic, singular. First, ami. Second, a. Third, esti. Plural. First, esmen. Second, este. Third, ac. Epic, singular. Second, esc. Plural. First, amen. Third, easi. Ionic, singular. Second, ace. Doric, singular. Third, nt. Plural. Third, nt. Aeolic, singular. First, me. Imperfect. Attic, singular. First, ein. Second, ace. Third, a. Plural. First, amen. Second, ete. Third, esan. Epic, singular. First, ea, ea. Eon. Second, eesta. Third, eein, eein, ean. Plural. Second, eate. Third, esan. Ionic, singular. First, eskon. Second, eas. Third, eske. Plural. Third, eato. Einto. Doric, singular. Third, ace. Plural. First, ames. Ames. Amen. Subjunctive. Present. Attic, singular. First, o. Second, ace. Third, a. Plural. First, omen. Second, ete. Third, osi. Epic, singular. First, eo. Third, ea. ac. Plural. First, eomen. Second, eete. Third, eosi. Ionic, singular. Second, eas. Imperfect. Attic, singular. First, aein. Second, aas. Third, aa. Plural. First, amen. Second, aete. Third, aesan. An. epic, singular, second, eois, third, eoi, plural, second, eta, third, ean, imperative, eso, Iolic and epic, second person singular, eonton, Ionic, third person plural, future, first, esomai, epic, second, esse, sai, third, essetai, participle, eon, epic and Ionic. Dialects of eimi, I go. 6. Present indicative second person esta, epic subjunctive, iesta, infinitive, imenai, imen, epic, imperfect, epic, eia, eis, and es, eia, ee, ia, and ei. First person plural, eomen. Third person plural, eion, and eisan. Ionic first person singular, eion. Third plural, eion, isan. Optative, eoi, iee. Epic, aorist middle, eisato. Dual, eisasthein. 7. Many verbs in omega have the present, perfect, and second aorist, active and middle, according to the form in mu iota, especially in the epic dialect. To such belong perfects in alpha alpha, as gegaa from ginomai, syncopated. Second aorist in mu eta nu, as ebleto from eblemen, ktamen and ktamenai from ktino, etc. From the principles of both conjugations above developed, the student can determine to which class each verbal form belongs. Adverbs. Adverbs are either primitive words as u, main, a, etc., or derived from the other parts of speech. They serve to define an object as to place, time, circumstance, manner. The greater number of adverbs are formed from adjectives and are generally of the termination omega sigma, omicron nu, alpha. Prepositions and conjunctions are used solely in denoting relations between words in a sentence, and therefore are transferred to that part of grammar which treats of the sentence. End of section 23. Section 24 of an Elementary Greek Grammar by Kühner, O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. recording by Cynthia Moyer. An Elementary Greek Grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 24. Part 2, Chapter 1. Section 106. Syntax. 1. Syntax treats of the relations words bear to one another in a sentence. 2. Every sentence has a subject, or that of which something is stated, and a predicate, or that which is stated of the subject. Example: Ho pais paidue, the boy plays. Here, ho pais, the boy, is the subject, and paidue, or what is stated of him, is the predicate. 3. The subject most commonly appears as a noun or pronoun, but may also be an adjective or participle with a noun understood, an infinitive mode, or a complete sentence. 4. The word which limits the meaning of a substantive is called an attributive, and this may be an adjective or participle, another noun. Note: a noun used in this relation is said to be in apposition with the noun it defines or limits, as Demosthenes the orator, Tacitus the historian. End note. The article, a pronoun, or a complete sentence. See Compound Sentences, section 131. 5. The predicate appears generally as a verb, accompanied by what is termed the object. The object may be a noun, pronoun, adjective, preposition with its case, a participle, infinitive, or a complete sentence. Section 131. Example: Agathos ho aner dikaiosunein philei, the good man loves justice. Here, agathos is the attributive of aner, subject, and dikaiosunein the object of philei, which completes the predicate. 6. From the foregoing distinction, the construction of a sentence is divided into the attributive and objective construction. Chapter 2, Section 107. Attributive construction, or the agreement of attributive words with their substantives. 1. The attributive word agrees with its substantive in case, gender, and number. Note: what is said of number in regard to agreement between attributive and substantive applies to the verb and its subject. The subject of a finite verb is always in the nominative case. End note. 2. When the infinitive or a complete sentence stands in the place of a substantive, the attributive is in the neuter gender if it be susceptible of gender terminations. 3. An adjective used substantively cannot have another adjective as attributive. Section 108. Principles of synesis. Note: this principle of agreement between words and clauses being regulated rather by the meaning implied than by grammatical form, is of very general application. As an example in clausal agreement, when a present is used for a past, praesens historicum, in the principal clause, the optative mode follows in the subordinate clause instead of the subjunctive, as required by grammatical form. See subordinate clauses. End note. Kata synesin. Exceptions in gender and number. 1. The attributives, instead of taking their gender and number from the grammatical gender and number of the noun, assume those of the object implied. Example: O teknon phile, dear child. Ho allos stratos ap ebainon, the rest of the army departed. In case 2. An attributive substantive in apposition with a possessive pronoun is in the genitive, to agree with the genitive implied in the possessive. Example: Emos daer en kunopidos. He was the brother-in-law of me, shameless. Iliad, Gamma, 180. Compare the Latin in tuum hominis simplicis pectus vidimus. This principle applies also to possessive adjectives. Example: Nestoree para nei basileos. Iliad, Beta, 54. Remark: the Greeks viewed a plurality of objects of the neuter gender as one connected whole. Hence, neuters plural have the number of the verb determined by the following principles. 1. When the neuter plural expresses a class as such, without regard to the individual members comprising it, the verb is singular. Example: Ta zoa treche. The same rule applies to participles. Example: doxan tauta. These things being agreed upon. Xenophon, Anabasis, 4:1-13. 2. If the neuter plural denotes persons, and if the idea of parts is prominent, the verb is plural. Example: ta tele, brasidan, exepempsan. The magistrates dispatched Brasidas. Thucydides, 4:88. Amphoterois hamartemata, egenonto. Errors were committed by each of the two. Thucydides, 5:26. Section 109. Agreement in the dual. Note: objects really plural, i.e., embracing more than two, rarely occur in the dual. A dual significance belongs generally to those substantives which, though plural in form themselves, are joined by a verb or attributive in the dual. End note. 1. Two objects may be expressed either in the dual or plural number, accompanied by attributives and verb, in either number indiscriminately. Example: Che mairoi potamoi cat oresfi reontes, sun baleton obrimon hudor. Two winter torrents descending from the mountains commingle their impetuous floods. Iliad, Delta, 452. 2. The dual forms to, toin, tutoin, auto, autoin, ho, hoin, tuto, occur in agreement both with masculine and feminine nouns. Example: to gunaike. The feminine ta seldom occurs. Note: in tragedy, with the names of women, the attributive occurs in the masculine in all numbers, as more suited to the dignity of the drama. End note. Section 110. Agreement with several nouns. When several nouns are connected together and have common verbs and attributives, the agreement is governed by the following rules. Number: 1. The verbs and attributives are in the plural when they belong to all the nouns equally, and the nouns are regarded as a combined multitude. Example: kai lethe, kai dyskolia, kai athumia, kai mania, polois empiptusin. Xenophon, Cyropedia, 3:12, 6. 2. When the several nouns are viewed separate and not combined into one united multitude, the verbs and attributives must be understood as belonging to each in its proper number, but are expressed in the number of the object to which they seem especially to belong. Example: epeto kai ohaimata kai therapontes kai he passa pole paraskioe. And there followed vehicles and servants, etc. The attributive adjective commonly takes the number of that object nearest to it. Example: pater kai meter kai adelphoi aichmalotoi gegenemenoi. Person. 3. When the nouns are of different persons, the verb agrees with the first in preference to the second, with the second in preference to the third. Gender. 4. Nouns denoting persons of different genders have their attributives in the masculine. 5. When the nouns denote persons and things, the attributives are in the gender of the persons, if they are the more prominent. Example: he tyche kai Philippos esan ton ergon kurioi. Fortune and Philip were the masters of circumstances. But if both are viewed as things, the attributives are in the neuter plural. Example: he kaliste poleteia kai ho kalistos aner loipa an hemin dielthein. Plato, Res Publica, 562, alpha. 6. When the nouns denote things and are of the same gender, the attributives agree with them, or are in the neuter and plural number. If of different genders, the attributives are always in the neuter plural. Example: kai dunames kai timai agatha onta. Plato. En he agora kai to prutaneion litho eskemena. Herodotus, 3:57. Special rules on the use of attributive words. Section 111. The Articles. 1. The article was originally a demonstrative pronoun, and is invariably used as such in Homer. Its office is to limit the meaning of a noun. Hence, whenever a noun is to be represented in a definite manner, it is to be accompanied by the article. 2. Proper names, owing to their naturally restricted meaning, do not take the article. 3. If the proper name is repeated, the article is added to it to denote that it is the name already mentioned. Example: anabaine un ho kuros. Xenophon, 1:1, 2. 4. The names of the arts and sciences, virtues, etc., as being individual appellatives, often omit the article. 5. A substantive predicate. Note: the nature of a predicate being to express a quality in general, it cannot be circumscribed to any one object which may possess this quality to the exclusion of others, and therefore rejects all restricting terms. The use of the article thus serves, in many instances, to distinguish subject from predicate. End note. does not take the article unless it is limited in compass to the subject. Example: hoi dihipobatai ekaleonto hoi pachees. The rich were named those before mentioned ipobatai. Herodotus 5:77. 6. The article, when joined to an adjective or participle, becomes a pronoun. Example: ho poiumenos, he doing, the doer. 7. An adverb placed between the article and its noun is an adjective in meaning. Example: hai opithin nees, the rear ships. Thucydides 1. 8. The article prefixed to an adverb, a preposition, or preposition with its case converts them into substantive or adjective phrases. Example: hoi panut ton anthropon, the best men. Ta nun, the present. Hoi en aste, the citizens. Section 112. Adjectives. 1. Adjectives, instead of being placed in agreement with their substantives as attributes, sometimes govern them in the genitive. Example: ho Christoi ton anthropon, worthy men. The adjective in this construction derives its gender from the noun it governs. 2. An adjective placed in the neuter gender, independent of the gender of its noun, governs the noun in the genitive. Example: meson tes hemeras. 3. When the noun can be easily conceived and supplied from the quality or action denoted by the adjective and participle, it is commonly omitted in the context. Example: ho sophos, the wise man. He epiousa, implied hemera, the following day. 4. Associations of space, time, and manner are denoted in Greek by adjectives. Example: skotaius dielthein to pedion, to traverse the plain in the dark. Xenophon, Anabasis 4:1, 5. Hina me hupaithrios talaporoe, that he might not suffer in the open air. Section 113. Pronouns. 1. Pronouns, both personal and possessive, are used in Greek only where emphasis is required. 2. Possessive pronouns have sometimes an objective meaning. Sos pothos, regret for you. 3. The pronoun sphisi, the possessive hos, and the reflexive heautou are used of the first and second persons. Example: ude gar ten heautou suke psyche horas, for neither do you see your own soul. Xenophon, Cyropedia 1:4, 9. Heuresite svas autus, he marte cotas ta megistu esteus. You will find yourselves committing grievous errors against the gods. Xenophon, Hellenica 1:7, 19. 4. Relative. The sentence in which a relative has place has two clauses: the antecedent clause, which contains the substantive, and the relative clause. The antecedent is often in the relative clause. Example: houtos estin, hon aides andra. See adjective subordinate clauses. 5. Demonstrative. A demonstrative pronoun, instead of being in the neuter gender or in the gender of the object to which it refers, takes the gender of the noun to which it assigns that object. Example: aute ton kakon pege estin. This evil is the fountain of evils. End of section 24.
Section 25 of an elementary Greek grammar by Kühner O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For further information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. An elementary Greek grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 25, Chapter 114. Objective Construction. 1. The relations existing between the members of the predicate, Chapter 106(5), are denoted by cases, which in Greek and Latin are distinguished by inflection endings. These relations were originally viewed as relations of space. From this they were transferred to time, and from time to cause and manner. 2. The action of every verb with which an object is joined as a supplement to complete the predicate was viewed as preceding to, from, or resting on that object. Hence the three relations: of genitive, which denotes motion from, of accusative, which denotes motion to, and of dative, which denotes rest in. As these relations are not confined to the verb and substantive, but may exist also between the latter and other parts of speech, it follows that wherever they are established, the case that expresses each respectively is to be applied. Hence it is that we find these cases in connection with nouns, with adjectives, with adverbs. Prepositions are used only to express these relations more precisely, as subsisting between two words, and will therefore be treated separately. Note: an attributive combination expresses one notion only, an objective combination expresses one thought. Becker. Chapter 115. The genitive. 1. In local relation expresses the idea whence, out of, separation, removal from. Hence it is joined to verbs of departing, separating, removing, freeing from, etc. Example: tu pedio hypochorein, to retire from the plane. Xenophon Kyropaedia 2, 424. So of verbs of ceasing, differing, alleviating, etc. 2. In its relation of separation, freeing from, differing from, the genitive is joined to nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. Example: apatheis kakon, without suffering evils. Herodot 3, 147. Philus poiestai heterus tonyn onton, to make other friends than the present ones. Thucydides 1, 28. Perentes hodu, on the other side of the way. Lysis kakon, freedom from ills. 3. In causal relation the genitive denotes outgoing, but as from an internal source of power or spring of action. Hence it is joined to verbs that signify to originate from, proceed from, be produced from, spring from, etc. Example: ariston andron eikos arista buleumata gignestai. It is consistent that the best measures should spring from the best men. Herodot 3:81. The genitive in this relation is used as an attribute, as ta ton anthropon pragmata, the things of man, that is, ta anthropina pragmata. 4. Remark: this and the following to 9 are the attributive combinations of the genitive, in which the noun in the genitive holds the relation of an attributive to the noun governing it. End of remark. The material of which anything is made, being viewed as its cause or source, is put in the genitive. Example: chalku po eontai ta agalmata. The statues are made of brass. Herodot 5:82. Attributively, as trapeza arguriou, a silver table. 5. The relation of origin, source, extends the genitive to that of authorship, possession, and the like. In this relation the genitive stands with the verbs einai, genestai, poiestai. Adjectives expressive of the same relation as idios, oikeos. Example: egeneto meschenee lykron tinachonon. Messenia belonged to the Locrians for some time. En hymon auton etelesete genestai. If you wish to, belong to yourselves. Be your own master. Demosthenes, Philippica 1:42. Hieron einai ton heliou, sacred to, belonging to the sun. Xenophon Anabasis 4:5-35. Attributively, as he Socratus arete, Socrates' virtue. 6. In its relation to possession, the genitive is joined to einai to denote habit, character, value, part, duty. Also the standard of price or measure to which anything belongs. Example: andros agatou estin poiein tus philus. It is part of the good man to benefit his friends. Dokei tauta tapanes megales einai. This seems to be a great expense. Ho euphrates potamos to euros esti tetaron stadion. 4 stadia in breadth. Xenophon Anabasis 1:4-11. Deca minon chorion, a place worth 10 minae. 7. Not only the direct agent or source from which an action originates, but also the collateral circumstances which may be viewed as concerned in the action, and conspiring to produce it, are placed in the genitive. On this principle, terms of time and place are construed in the genitive, especially in poetry. Example: ante talai tu earos, flowers bloom in spring. Pediu di epresson, they traversed the plain. Ilias Gamma 14. Nephos du fainetu pases gaies, no cloud appeared over the plain. Ilias Rho 372. 8. Hence, attributively, the genitive tu autou et tous, tes autes hemeras, the genitive in this sense expresses time when, but only as a period in the course of which, or within which, the action takes place. 9. On this principle, the genitive absolute, as a term of time, can be explained. Example: Kyru basileiontos, The accusative in this relation implies that the action is protracted during the whole of the time specified. The genitive, that it takes place at some moment within the time specified. 10. The genitive stands for the whole of an object in relation to one or more of its parts. Hence its use with all words of a partitive meaning, with verbs whose action can refer only to a part of an object. Example, ton menonton etele einai, he wished to be one of the remaining. Thukydides 1:65. Stagones hydatos, drops of rain. With adjectives, poloi ton anthropon, comparatives and superlatives, hoi neoteroi auton, the younger among them. Aristos ton achaion, the bravest of the Greeks. With adverbs as pou ges, where on earth, en tauta tes helikias, at the age, opse tes hemeras, late in the day. 11. Here belong such phrases as epibainein tes ges, to set foot on land, temnein ges, to ravage a country. 12. Of verbs whose action can refer only to a part, may be mentioned as of most frequent use with the genitive the verbs to taste, to smell, to eat, to catch hold, to aim. Remark, the verbs to aim, to pursue, etc. seem more correctly to belong to verbs expressing an affection of the mind. 14. As they always imply mental effort and direction. End of remark. Example, apogeestai tuton ton bromaton, to taste of these meats. Xenophon Kyropedia 1:3-4. Odsein ion, to smell violets. Estiein cheon, to eat of flesh. Meso duros helon, having seized his spear by the middle. Ilias Eta 56. 13. Under the relation of sharing, participating in, the genitive accompanies words that denote experience, dexterity, skill, and the like with their opposites. Example, empeiros aimi tes technes, I am acquainted with the arts. Apeiros einai tautes tes technes, to be unacquainted with this art. 14. Every word that implies any mental emotion may have the genitive of the object which calls forth that emotion. This obviously is the genitive of motion from under another phrase. Example, Sokrates erotikos diakeitai ton kalon. Socrates is fond of the beautiful. Plato, Symposion 216. Ton agathon pantes epitumusin, all long for the good. Plato, Republic 438. Zelose tu plotu, I envy you your wealth. Hector daut Aianthos acontise. Hector aimed at Ajax. Ilias He 855. 15. Many verbs are used figuratively in denoting mental action and are, on the above principle, construed to the genitive. Example, epaigomenos per areos, eager for the fight. Ilias Tau 142. Metis nun enaron epipalomenos, setting himself on spoils. Ilias Zeta 68. 16. A condition is connected with the genitive of the object which occasions it, as kakos echopodon, I am ill in my feet. The object seems governed by the adverb, as hotu tropu eches, Xenophon Kyropedia 7:5. For the genitive of the infinitive, with tu me, see under infinitive. The genitive relations above developed may be briefly stated as follows: motion from source, means, authorship, possession; motion from separation, part, participation in. Chapter 116. Accusative. 1. In local relation is the case that expresses motion to and answers to the question whether. It marks the limit to which the action proceeds, as astu molein, to go to the city. 2. The relation denoted by the accusative can subsist between a substantive and a verb, a preposition, an adverb, another substantive, but most commonly occurs between it and the two former. 3. With verbs of motion, the space passed over, also the time over which the performance of an action extends, are put in the accusative. Example: al emigarde lemonestaten hodon. I shall go to the most toilsome way. Euripides, Medea 1067. Sybaris ekmadze tuton tunchonon malista. Sybaris was extremely flourishing during this time. Herodot 6, 127. 4. From this use of the accusative have sprung many adverbial expressions of space and time, as ten tachistēn hodon, as quick as possible; ten protēn, first; Demosthenes Olympia 11. Ten allos, Demosthenes Philippica 11. The accusative of place is used in poetry with verbs of rest. Example: O Pythios tripoda katizon phoibos. Euripides Orestes 944. 5. Causal relation. The accusative marks the effect as the limit to which the cause tends. Example: he hybris ton tyrannon phuteuiei. Hence the accusative of effect with transitive verbs. 6. The simplest relation of this accusative exists between verbs, whether transitive or intransitive, and a substantive of cognate stem or kindred meaning. Example: deomai hymon dikaian deasin. I claim from you a just request. Demosthenes Philippica 1. Polemon estratoisan. They conducted the war. Thucydides 9, 912. 7. From this principle, intransitive verbs take the accusative of an object of kindred meaning, or such as accords with the meaning of the verbs to form one complete, harmonious idea with them. Example: estraptein gorgopon zelas, to light a terrific light. Menia pneiontes achaioi, the Achivi breathing strength. Ilias Gamma 8. Area pnein blepein, to breath, look, war. Olympia nikan, to conquer in the Olympic Games. Some verbs of this class, instead of substantive, take an adjective. Example: asthenes phtengestai hedu gelan. Latin: mortale sonans. Aeneas 6. 8. This use of the accusative explains the origin of many adverbial expressions, as tautachairein taumasta ekpletestai. 9. The accusative relation of verbs intransitive is extended to verbs passive, to adjectives of intransitive signification, in order to give completeness to their meaning. It is called the accusative of definite limitation. Example, kamnein tus ophthalmus, to suffer in the eyes. Kalos esti ta omata, of beautiful eyes. 10. In causal relation, the accusative, beside limitation, denotes the design or purpose for which anything is done, and also the manner of the action. Example, krestai tiniti, to use anything for some purpose. Te krene ta plaistu axia ekronto, the fontaine they used for the most solemn purposes. Thukydides 11. Peistenai tin anachoresin, to be persuaded to a retreat. Thukydides 2:15. Tuton ton tropon, in this manner. 11. In causal relation, the accusative is used of the object upon which the action or condition is founded. Example, me feuge ton kindynon, do not flee the danger. Tas men machas tarete, brave the battles. Xenophon 3:2-20. Extenai kindynon, to shrink from the danger. 12. Hence the accusative is used with verbs that express a feeling or a sudden emotion to denote the cause that excites that feeling. Example, eishünomai ton theon, double accusative. 13. Transitive verbs take a second accusative of the object upon which the immediate effect is produced, or of the matter in which, or of the means whereby it is produced. The latter is more commonly in the dative. Example, heauton lobatai loben anekeston, he inflicts on himself an incurable maiming. Herodot 3:154. Tenomachian apeosameta Corinthius, we repelled the Corinthians in a naval fight. Thucydides 1:32. Orkosan tus stratiotas tus megistus orcus, they bound the soldiers in the most solemn oaths. Thucydides 8:75. 14. This double accusative is common with verbs signifying to do good or evil, to inquire, to ask, to teach, etc. When this construction is changed to the passive, the accusative of the immediate object becomes the nominative of the subject, but the second accusative remains the same. Example, ekrisis en ekrite, the judgment to which he was condemned. Chapter 117. Dative. 1. The relations of the dative, as of the other cases, are twofold, local and causal. 2. In local relation, the dative denotes approach, nearness to an object, or a residing in it, and is joined to all words conveying such signification, also to words implying association with, intercourse with, communion, contrast. Example, aigialo bremetai, roars upon the shore. Ilias Beta 210. Tois agatois homilein, to associate with the good. Koinai pasin hemin, common to us all. Isocrates, Panegyricos 42:9. Toisi lacedaemonioisi antioi, opposite to, etc. Plato, Symposion 195. homoion, homoio, aie pelatei, like approaches like. Thucydides 2:61. 3. The dative denotes the time in which an action happens, the circumstances under which it happens. Example, te prote hemera afikonto epi ton potamon. On the first day they came to the river. Xenophon Anabasis 4:8. Se kake ai se tekon, under the evil destiny I gave you birth. Ilias Alpha 418. 4. In causal relation, the dative denotes the object with reference to which it is, for or against which anything is or is done, dative of advantage and disadvantage. The object on which an action is manifested in its results. Example, Artemidi eorten agein, to keep a feast for, in honor of Artemis. Herodot 6:138. Hyphistastai xymphorais, to yield to circumstances. Xenophon Anabasis 3:211. Kyro en megale Basileia, to Kyros was, that is, Kyros had, a great kingdom. Echtrostini, hostile to anyone. Periphilias tois Athenaios, regarding friendship with the Athenians. Thucydides 55. Pyros protois doter horas Prometheia, to giver of fire to mortals. Aeschylus, Persae 617. This dative is often qualified by a participle. Example, moi hedumenu elten. 5. The dative is used with expressions of likeness, agreement, suitableness, and their opposites. Example, humoian tais doulais eiche ten esteta. She had a dress like her slaves. Xenophon Cyropedia 5:1-4. Ta ota passio zoi, the same with you. 6. With expressions of reproach, blame, help, contention, opposition, cooperation, and the like. Example, utois archein bulomenus memphomai, I blame not those who wish to rule. Thucydides 4:61. 7. The ablative of means, cause, in Latin is expressed by the dative in Greek. Some verbs also, as chaomai, take a dative of the direct object instead of the accusative. Example, phobo appelton, they departed through fear. Tini chastai, to use anything. The dative of manner, means, etc. is extended to the degree, the standard and measure of anything, the degree by which one thing surpasses another or differs from it. Example, polomeizon. 9. Many dative expressions, not directly embraced in the foregoing rules, can be easily traced to the general principles of dative of the object, with reference to which anything is done. Such are the following: to aptomenu exoten soma uk agan thermon en, to one touching the body externally it was not very warm. Eispanti syrian hosa mekri thalasses oikei, as many as dwell towards the sea, as one enters Syria. And the expression synelonti eipein, to say in a word, that means to say it when one has brought it together. 10. With verbal adjectives, the agent is regularly in the dative. Example: asketeon esti zoetin areten. You must practice virtue. 11. The dative of the personal pronoun first and second persons is used to point out in an animated manner the interest of the speaker or of the person addressed. Example: O Mater, hos kalos moi ho pappos. O mother, behold how beautiful grandfather is. End of section 25.
Section 26 of an elementary Greek grammar by Kühner, O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. An elementary Greek grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 26. 118. Prepositions with their cases. Prepositions express the foregoing case relations, see 114, with more precision and fullness. They denote primarily relations of place, but are also applied to time and cause. As some prepositions are connected with different cases, it is obvious that their signification must be modified under different constructions to correspond to the different case relations of genitive, whence, accusative, whither, and dative, where. Thus, para, nearby, with genitive denotes from nearby, as para basileos, from near by the king. With the accusative, it denotes to the presence of, as hei para ton basilea, he went into the presence of the king. With dative, it denotes rest nearby, in the presence of, para to basilei menein, to abide in the presence of the king. List of prepositions. There are 18 prepositions in the Greek language. Of these, 4 govern the genitive only. Anti, opposite to, instead of, pro, before, apo, ek, from. 2 govern the dative only. En, in, syn, with. 3 govern the accusative only. Ana, up. Eis, horse, into, towards. 4 govern the accusative and genitive. Dia, through. Kata, down. Hyper, over. Meta, amidst. 6 govern the genitive, dative, and accusative. Amphi, peri, around. Epi, upon. Hypo, under, by means of. Pros, to. Para, nearby, by the side of. Besides the foregoing, some adverbial phrases are used with the meaning of prepositions, as dicen, demas, Latin instar, like, charin, heneca, for the sake of, heceti, by, according to. 119. Infinitive and participle. 1. The infinitive is the simple notion of the verb. Note, the infinitive is not properly a mode, for it represents the simple notion of a verb without any modification. End note. Without reference to any particular subject, and therefore without the limitations of number and person. 2. It retains the governing power of the verb, with the verbal properties of tense and voice. 120. Infinitive without the article. 1. The infinitive without the article is used only as the subject of the verb eimi, or as the complement of the predicate in the accusative. Note, this limitation of the infinitive seems hardly admissible in some passages, as in the following. Dem ol 1:13. Pola kai chalepa, hysteron eis anangin elthomen poiein, where the relation is that of genitive. See Genesis 4. 2. The infinitive as an accusative follows such verbs as express feelings, powers, or operations of the mind, or some action, state, or endeavour proceeding from the will or the understanding. Such verbs are 1. To will, strive, resolve, design, undertake, dare, require, command, persuade, exhort, allow, together with their opposites, forbid, refuse, etc. 2. To behave, suppose, etc. 3. To be able, understand, cause, make, etc. 4. To learn, instruct, etc. 5. To rejoice, be glad, sorry, etc. 3. The infinitive in the same sense follows adjectives denoting fitness, worthiness, agreeableness. Example, heidu, pinein, pleasant to drink. Note, the use of the active infinitive, where a passive suits our language, is explained by supposing such expressions as for us, for one, understood. Thus, axios thaumasai, worthy to be admired, worthy for us to admire. End note. Also impersonal expressions and expressions denoting power, capability, etc. For example, hoios poiein, capable of doing. 121. Infinitive accompanied by a second object and its attributives. 1. Many verbs besides an infinitive take a direct object, which is in the case required by the verb. For example, deomai su elthein, I request you to come. 2. Attributives joined to the object by means of the infinitive of apposition verbs are in the case of the object or in the accusative. Deomai su prothymu einai, or prothymon einai, I request you to be earnest. 3. When the attributive gives the object new relations by becoming itself the head of a clause, it is in the accusative instead of the case of the object. For example, deomai humon, katapsephisasthai enthymumenos, hosos moi ho agon estin, reflecting how great my contest is. Andron agathon estin adicumenus ex eirenes polemein. It is the duty of the brave when wronged to exchange peace for war. Th 1, 120. 4. When the infinitive with its subject is made the object of verbs of willing, thinking, manifesting, verba sentiendi et declarandi, and the subject of the infinitive is different from the subject of the principal verb, it, together with its attributives, is in the accusative. Nomisei ton agathon andra eudaimona einai. If the subject of the infinitive is the same as the subject of the principal verb, it is not expressed, and the attributives are in the nominative. For example, nomisei eudaimon einai, he thinks he is happy. Note, this rule applies also in the case of the infinitive with the article, even when such infinitive with its subject is the subject of another verb, and not in the relation of object. For example, to hamartanein anthropus ontas, uden oimai thaumaston, that men, constituted as they are, should err, is, I think, nothing strange. The use of the accusative seems to arise from the dependent nature of an infinitive clause. End note. Hoste is joined to the infinitive in order to express a purpose, or an object to be accomplished. For example, anepese, xerxea, hoste, poiein, tauta. He persuaded Xerxes to do this. Herodotus 7:6. 127. Infinitive with the article. 1. The infinitive with the article is virtually a noun, and satisfies all the case relations of nouns above explained, without losing its government as a verb. It gives the Greek language the power of expressing a whole clause, inserted between the infinitive and the article as one substantive idea. For example, doryphorusin epi tus kakurgus hyper tu medena ton politon biaio thanato apothneskin. They kept guard against the wicked in order that no citizen should suffer a violent death. 2. As the infinitive corresponds to the rules of substantives, it is unnecessary to treat it in detail. The following particulars, however, deserve special notice. 3. The genitive of the infinitive with tu. Note, the genitive of the infinitive is sometimes used in the sense of belonging to or connection in reference to what precedes it. For example, empeirus de echontes tus diokondas tu me ekpheugein, having their pursuers experienced which tended to their not escaping. Th 11:4. This may be regarded as a feature of the genitive of quality or possession. See 115. Consult Arnold's Th, Book 2. End note. To me is used to denote a purpose or object, the result of an action being substituted for that which calls forth the action. See genitive of cause, source. For example, minos, tolestikon, kathere, ektes, thalasses, tu tas prosodus, mallon ienai auto. Minos cleared the pirates from the sea, in order that his revenue might come in better. Th 1:4. 4. Frequently the infinitive with the article to is used where a noun in its place would be in the genitive. For example, ton pleiston, homilon, ton psilon, eirgon, to me ta egus, tes poleos kekurgein. They restrained the multitude from injuring the neighbouring portions of the city. Th 3:1. Here to merely gives emphasis to the infinitive, which is governed as without the article, that is, the object of eirgon. 5. The phrases in which the article stands with the infinitive einai absolutely, an adverb or a preposition, and its case being enclosed, may be regarded as adverbial. For example, to nyn einai, according to the present condition. To kata tuton einai, as far as pertains to him. 128. Participle 1. The participle represents the idea of the verb attributively, but instead of quality, it denotes action or state. It retains the verb properties of tense and voice, as also the governing power of the verb. These give it relations not embraced in the rules for attributives, to which it otherwise conforms. Such relations only will be here presented. 2. The participle is joined to a verb to express an action or state as already belonging either to the subject or object. For example, oida thnetos on. I know that I am mortal. Ekusa Socratus dialogomenu. I heard Socrates debating. It is obvious that the participle agrees with the word to which it refers, whether it be the object or subject. When the subject of the principal verb is likewise its object, the object is not expressed, and the participle is attracted in case to the subject. 3. The participle is used as a complement of verbs denoting perception, manifesting, etc. For example, ro se trejunta, I see you running. Diabeblemenos u manzanes, do you not perceive that you are calumniated? He psyche athanatos phaenetai usa, the soul appears to be immortal, evidently is immortal. See 129. 4. The condition or circumstances attending an action are sometimes expressed in Greek by a verb, whilst an accompanying participle expresses the main action. For example, ho kroisos phonea tu paidos, elanthane boskon. Croesus unconsciously nourished the murderer of his son. Diatelo kala poion, I am continually doing good. Ephtesan apikomenoi, they came first. 5. This construction is adopted also with the adjectives polos, pantoios, and the verb Echo, signifying state or condition. For example, polos ein lysomenos ho xeinos. The stranger entreated earnestly much. Echusi autein, tein hegemoniein ktesamonoi. They have acquired. Ti leron eches. Why keep trifling? 129. Difference between the infinitive and participle as complements. 1. From the foregoing rules it is seen that the participle and the infinitive may be used as complements of the same class of verbs and phrases. There is a difference, however, in the manner both connect the action or state they denote with the noun to which they refer. The action or state, as implied in the participle, is viewed as already belonging to the object or subject, and appropriated by it at the time signified, whilst with the infinitive no such close connection exists, but the idea of the verb is viewed as detached, and rather possibly than actually at the time specified belonging to the subject or object. This difference can be best seen from examples. Thus, oida theus sebomenos means I am conscious of worshipping the gods. Oida theus sebestai, I know how to worship the gods, without implying that I worship them. Akuo Sokratos dialegomenu, I heard Socrates discoursing with my own ears. Akuo Sokratus dialegestai, I hear from others that Socrates discourses. Eis hünemai kaka praton ton philon, I am ashamed of doing evil to a friend. Eis hünemai kaka pratein ton philon, I am ashamed, prevented by shame, to do evil, etc. Ephineto klaion, he evidently wept, or it was evident he wept. Ephineto klaiein, he seemed to weep. 130. The participle used to express adverbial and circumstantial relations. 1. The participle defines a substantive as to time, cause, condition, purpose, and manner. 2. This use of the participle is often supplied in English by a subordinate clause introduced by a relative or a conjunction. Example: Oi fugontes polemioi ediochthesan. When the enemy fled, they were pursued. Episkepsomai ton philon nosunta, I will go to see my friend who is sick. Leisomenoi zosin, they live by plunder. Tuto phrason eko, I come to announce this. 3. When the participle qualifies a noun or pronoun not otherwise governed or not governing in the sentence, they are both in the genitive. This is called the genitive absolute or independent. Example: panton, sioponton, eipe, toiade. When all were silent, he spoke the following: Kyru basilewontos, in the reign of Cyrus. 4. This genitive absolute generally refers to time, but is used also in other relations, both conditional and causal. For example, panto hellenikon ekinethe diaphoron uson hekastachothen. The whole Grecian world was agitated because, inasmuch as disunion prevailed everywhere. Th. 382. 5. The dative of the participle and noun is used in specifying time and instrument, but cannot be regarded as absolute, since its close connection with the other members of the sentence brings it under the rules of the ordinary dative. 6. The accusative absolute is used where the participle has no definite subject. Consequently, in the impersonal phrases exon, deon, dokun, paraschon, prosekon, etc. Hemin, exon, me, kalos, zein. As it is not in our power to live with honor. Kalos, paraschon, as a favorable opportunity being offered. Dokun, whereas it seems fit. 7. The accusative absolute is sometimes used with participles not in the impersonal form. In this case, a verb denoting mental operation is understood. For example, Esiopa hos pantas eidotas. He was silent, thinking that all were informed of it. 8. The nominative and accusative absolute are used as additional attributives in description. For example, tus bus thaptusi ta kerata hyperechonta. They bury the oxen with the horns projecting. 9. Some adverbial expressions in English are rendered in Greek by the participle. For example, arxamenos in the beginning, teleuton finally. End of section 26. Section 27 of an Elementary Greek Grammar by KÜHNER, O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. An Elementary Greek Grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 27. Chapter 4. Compound Sentences. 131. Principal and Subordinate Clauses. 1. In the simple sentence treated above, the attributives, as well as the complement of the predicate, consist of single words: noun, pronoun, infinitive, adjective, participle, and adverb. The place of each of these may be filled by a complete clause dependent on the verb or phrase on which the simple term in the same position would depend. 2. Subordinate clauses, as dependent sentences are termed, are therefore divided into substantive, adjective, and adverbial clauses, according as they supply the place and bear the import of these parts of speech, respectively. 3. The connection between the two clauses, principal and subordinate, as individual members of the same sentence, falls on the verb alone, which must be modified in the subordinate clause, according to the nature of the dependence existing, and to the time implied in the verb of the principal clause. 4. The leading principles which regulate the syntax of the verb in the connection here intimated will be briefly given, a short notice of the syntax of tenses and modes being prefixed. 132. Tenses. 1. Tenses are divided into two classes: principal, namely present perfect, future, and historical. Footnote, so called from their use in historical narratives, end footnote, namely imperfect, past perfect, and aorist. 2. The present represents an action going on at a time present to the speaker, as grapho ten epistolein, I am writing the letter. It is used of past actions to present them in a more intimate view, as tauten ten taphron basileus poiei anti erumatos. This ditch the king constructs as a defense. 3. The perfect represents an action just completed at the present time, or existing to the present in its results. Example, ten epistolein gegrapha, I have written the letter. He polis ektistai, the city has been and still remains built. 4. The future represents an action as about to take place at a time that is future in relation to the present time of the speaker. Example, grapso, I will write. 5. The future perfect represents a future action as completed in anticipation, as tetuxomai tes eirenes, I shall have obtained the peace.
6. The imperfect represents an action in progress in past time, but contemporaneous with some other action or event. It takes in accompanying circumstances and is therefore the proper tense for descriptive narratives. Example: Hote engys esan oi barbaroi oi Hellenes emachonto. When the barbarians were approaching, then the Hellenes were fighting. 7. The past perfect represents an action completed in past time, but always with reference to some other action, as hote oi symmechoi eplesiedzon, hoi Athenaioi tus Persas enenikekesan. As the allies drew near, the Athenians had conquered the Persians. 8. The aorist represents an action of past time, absolutely without reference to any other action, as έγραψα, I wrote. It is used of customary and repeated actions, of facts based on experience. For example, Ζημίας autois επέθυσαν. They were wont to impose penalty on them. Zen CY 122. Mikron praisma hapanta anechaitise kai dielusen. A slight disaster subverts and ruins all. Dem OL 129. Hence arises its frequent use in comparisons in poetry, since comparison must be based on observation. For example, horse hote tis drus eripen, as when a tree falls. ILP 482. 9. The subjunctive of the principal tenses and the optative of the historical denote something present or future. This accounts for the absence of the augment in the imperfect and aorist in those modes, since augment marks time that is past. 133. Modes. 1. The indicative is the mode of actual facts and positive statement. 2. The optative and subjunctive are the modes of conditional facts and conceptions. 3. The optative is the subjunctive of the historical tenses. The aorist subjunctive implies conditional future. 4. The imperative is the mode of the unconditional expressions of the will, and is used in commanding, supplicating, etc. General principle of the use of the modes. 5. A positive assertion, an actual realized fact, a statement based upon realized facts, are to be expressed in the indicative. Hence, this is the natural mode of the principal clause. Hoi polemioi apephygon, the enemy fled. 6. A conception, a fact dependent on a condition, a purpose or aim, which are all things merely conceived, and dependent on some condition as to their realization. An indirect statement, the statement of the opinions of another, which the writer would not have ascribed to himself, are to be expressed in the optative or subjunctive mode. Hence, these are the proper modes of dependent or subordinate clauses. Examples: conception, uk echo hopoi trapomai, I know not where to turn. Purpose, lego hinamathes, I speak that you may learn. Indirect discourse, elegen hoti hetoimos eie hegeistai autois, he said that he was prepared to guide them. Zen An 7:1-33. Statement of the opinion of another. Tissaphernes diebale ton kyron hos epibuleivoi auto. Tissaphernes accused Cyrus that he was plotting against him. Zen An 1. 134. The indicative in subordinate clauses. 1. The The indicative is used in the subordinate or dependent clause when a realized fact, and not a conception or supposition, is therein stated. Example, hoi telegon oti arktoi polus ede diephteiran. And they affirmed that the boars already killed many. Zen CY 147. 2. The indicative of the historical tenses is used with an in the subordinate clause of actions which would certainly follow on the fulfillment of a certain condition. Example, eituto eleges, he martanes an. Such a sentence is virtually negative. 3. As the future is naturally dependent on time and circumstances, it is of frequent use in subordinate clauses, except of the aorist subjunctive. It takes an, epic ke, when a condition independent of futurity is to be made prominent. Example, ei dodysseus elthoi, aipsa kesun ho paidi bias apotisetai andron. OD Ro 540. 4. With the present and perfect indicative, an is never used. 5. The indicative with an is also used to denote repeated action under certain conditions. Example, an apen, he would say, was accustomed to say. Footnote: the use of the modal particle an can be learned only by a complete examination of conditional subordinate sentences. The following general view of its signification deserves attention. Quote, it indicates that what is stated in its own clause is dependent on certain conditions, expressed or implied, and therefore, as to realization, dependent on the fulfillment of such conditions. A predicate, therefore, accompanied by an, is based upon another predicate as its condition. See KÜHNER, GG. End quote. A predicate, therefore, accompanied by an, is based upon another predicate as its condition. See KÜHNER, GG. End footnote. 135. Optative and subjunctive in simple clauses. 1. The dependent or subordinate clause of a compound sentence is the proper and natural place of the optative and subjunctive modes. They are sometimes employed in simple sentences, yet always involving a dependency on some thought or feeling. The following are the most common instances of their use in this respect. Subjunctive in simple clauses. 1. To express doubt and deliberation. Example, poitrapomai, whither am I to turn? 2. Advice, exhortation. Example, iomen, let us go. 3. Command, entreaty. Negatively with me, mede. Example, me tresis, do not fear. 4. In poetry, epic, the aorist subjunctive, is used of a future action instead of the indicative future. Example, ugar tis me bie dietai, for no one will force me. Il eta 197. Ugar potoius idon aneras ude idomai, for I have never seen nor shall I see such men. Il alpha 262. 5. This use of the subjunctive with ude, me, is common with Attic writers, as ume genetai tuto. This use of the aorist denotes what is future, as something admitted, expected, or apprehended, and terms of such import should be supplied in rendering the thought into English. The optative in simple clauses. 1. The optative, as before remarked, is the subjunctive of the historical tenses, and therefore, as a general rule, denotes what is conceived as past, whilst the subjunctive refers to the future. The optative, when a present conception is expressed in the subjunctive, the probability of its being realized is assumed, or its uncertainty is suppressed in viewing the present, or the future from the present point of time, but when expressed in the optative, the subjunctive of historical tenses, the speaker transfers himself, as it were, to the past, and views the conception from a point of time remote from that implied in it, and consequently without the same definiteness and certainty that spring from an inspection favored by a close connection in time. Kühner, LGG 466 1. End footnote. Aorist and imperfect, when used of present and future time, denote that the conceptions are viewed with much more uncertainty and indefiniteness than would be implied in the subjunctive. It is thus used to denote 1. Supposition, presumption, admission, possibility, without implying its realization. Example: Apollomenes detes psyches tot ede ten physin tes astheneas epideknioi to soma. Life being extinct, the body then, we may presume, betrays its frail nature. Plato, Phaedo 87. 2. Wish, desire, tuto me genoito. May this not happen. Meman aspudi kai akleos apolloimen. May I not perish ignobly, etc. Peak C 304. 3. Command in the form of request. Example: chorois eiso. Proceed in. 4. Direct questions implying supposition, wish. Example: ra pneumoi ti pithoio. Would you but listen to me. IL Delta 93. 5. Deliberative questions with the past signification of the tense. Example: ti philos rexaimi. What friend was I to do? 136. Sequence of tenses. 1. A subordinate with a principal clause present one united thought, the two being so related that the subordinate stands as the complement or limiting member, subject, attribute, or object of the principal. Example: Engelan hoti hoi persai apophygoen. They announced that the Persians fled. Here the subordinate sentence, hoti hoi persai, etc., is the object. Engelthe hoti megara aphestike. It was announced that Megara had revolted. The revolt of Megara was announced. The subordinate holds the place of a subject. 2. The relation of the verb of the subordinate clause to that of the principal clauses is regulated as follows. 3. If the verb in a principal clause is in the principal tense, present, perfect, future, the verb in the subordinate clause is in the subjunctive. Example: Grapho hina elthes. I write that you may come. If in a historical tense, imperfect, aorist, pluperfect, the verb in the subordinate clause is in the optative. Example: Egrapsa hina elthois. Hence the sequence of tenses is: principal clause, present, grapho, I write, perfect, gegrapha, future, grapso, subordinate, hina elthes, subjunctive, that you may come, imperfect, egraphon, aorist, egrapsa, I wrote, pluperfect, egegraphein, subordinate, hina elthois, optative, that you might come. Note: from the above it will be seen that the optative is properly the mode of the historical tenses. It corresponds to the imperfect and pluperfect subjunctive in Latin. 4. The rule regarding the sequence of tenses, though a main principle in the construction and syntax of the language, is not regularly followed. In animated narrative, the subjunctive follows an historical tense. Example: tus hepeas ekelose phulatein heos an tis semane. Zen CY 4:536. 5. Frequently there occurs also an attraction of the mode in the subordinate clause. Example: anthropos, edunet an pratein ha ebuleto. Man was, would be, able to do what he wished. XC 1:4-14. 6. When two conditional clauses are connected, implying probability in different degrees, the more probable result is expressed in the subjunctive. Example, uk antoi chraisme kitharis, hot en koniesi migeies. IL, Gamma 55. Here the doubt rests on migeies. 7. When the present is used for a past tense, see 132-2, in the principal clause the optative is in the subordinate clause, kata synesin. 137. Special view of subordinate sentences in their threefold division of substantive, adjective, and adverbial. 1. Substantive clauses represent the substantive idea of subject, attribute, or object expanded into a sentence. In the use of the mode, footnote, it is a common error to trace the mode employed in a subordinate clause to the preceding particle. It is the conception implied that determines the mode, whether such conception embraces a fact or reality when the indicative is required, or merely something existing only in thought and imagination, which demands the subjunctive and optative. This principle is the same for simple and subordinate clauses, and viewing the latter as involving any other principle in their modal construction is an error. End footnote. They conform to the general principles of modes. See 133. 2. Substantive clauses are introduced by the conjunctions hoti and hos, when they stand as the objects of words of perception, manifesting, etc. Example, enggelthe, hoti megara aphesteke. Th 1:114. Hutoi elegon, hoti ariaios depethelgos eie. Zen an 2:1-3. 3. The mode in such substantive clauses can be the optative or indicative, according as they denote reality, or a conviction of reality on the part of the speaker, or mere conception or supposition. 4. Secondly, substantive clauses denoting purpose, aim, effect are introduced by the conjunctions kina, hos, hopos, ophra, poetic, hina me, hos me, hopos me. Example, gegrapha humin, hina me enochleste, dem cor 239-39. Don gyron apekalei, hopos ta en persais, epichoria, epiteloie. He summoned Cyrus back, that he might complete, etc. Zen cy 1:4-25. 138. Adjective subordinate clauses. 1. Adjective subordinate clauses are such as represent the adjective or participial idea expanded into a sentence. Example, ta pragmata ha Alexandros epraxen, ta hypo Alexandru prachthenta pragmata. The deeds which Alexander has accomplished. The deeds accomplished by Alexander. 2. Adjective clauses are introduced by the relative pronouns hos, footnote in Homer and the Doric poets, and sparingly among the Attic and Ionic prose writers, hos is used as a demonstrative. Example, poles, Hellenidas, asmen, anairon, etc. Dem cor 248. End footnote. Hostis, hoios, hosos, hostisun, helikos. Example, hus an horo, takala epitedeontas, tutus, timeso. I will honor those whom I observe living honorably. 3. An adjective subordinate clause becomes a substantive clause when the relative accompanied by the verb eimi and an adjective stands as a demonstrative noun. Example, elthon hoi aristoi esan. The best, that is, those who were the best, came. 4. From this use of the relative is derived the expression estin Footnote: inflection of estin hoi, abbreviated enioi, nominative, estin hoi, enioi, genitive, estin hon, enion, dative, estin hois, eniois, accusative, estin us, enius. End footnote. Hoi, hon, hois, hus, ha, some, which obtain the character and signification of one word in the different relations of case, and is inserted even in the middle of sentences. Example: Kleopombos tes parathalasiou estin ha edeose. Cleopompus laid waste some of the country bordering on the sea. Th 226. Ende tuton ton stathmon hus pani macrus elaunen. He made some of these stathmoi very long. 5. The use of esti and the relative adverbs is also of common occurrence. Example: estin hote, sometimes; estin hote elexen, he spoke sometimes. End of section 27. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. Recorded in Oxford, England.
Section 28 of An Elementary Greek Grammar by Kühner, O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. An Elementary Greek Grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 28. 139. Attraction of the relative. 1. The attributive connection of the adjective clause with the principal has led to the frequent attraction of the relative into the case of its antecedent in the principal clause, whereby the adjective character of the subordinate clause is better preserved. Example: chairo tais epistolais hais egrapsas. Chairo tais hypo su gegramenais epistolais is more in the adjective agreement with the principal clause than the common construction would be. 2. By attraction the adjective clause, when introduced by hoios, hosos, helikos, etc., may be omitted in the following manner. The correlative demonstrative pronoun is omitted with eimi. The relative is attracted into the case of the antecedent noun, and the subjunctive of eimi follows the case of the relative. For example, charizomai andri toyuto hoyos su ei becomes by above rule charizomai andri hoyo soi, which was inverted into charizomai hoyo soi andri. Pros andras tolmerus hoius kai athenaius, against brave men such as the Athenians are. Inverted attraction. 1. This consists in the attraction of the antecedent into the case of the relative. It occurs most frequently in the phrases udeis hostis ou, eimi being omitted, etc. Example: peri hon udena kindunon, udeis kindunos esti, hontin uch hypemenan hoi progonoi. There is no danger which your ancestors, etc. Dem Cor 295. 2. Adjective clauses in respect to mode are governed by the general principle. See 133. For difference between optative and subjunctive, see 133. 140. Adverbial subordinate clauses. 1. Adverbial clauses represent the adverbial idea dilated in expression into a sentence. They denote the adverbial relations of time, place, and circumstances, and serve as adverbial expressions to define rather than to complete the predicate. 2. They are divided into adverbial clauses, 1. Of place, which are introduced by the relative adverbs of place, namely hu, he, hope, hopu, hothen, entha, enthen, hoi, hopo, hope. Example, hepiste hopi antis hegetai. Follow whithersoever each officer leads. Th. 211. In mode they conform to the general principle. See 133. 2. Of time. To these belong all conjunctions and expressions denoting when, while, as soon as, since, sooner than, till, until. For example, emachonto mechris hoi Athenaioi anepliosan. They continued fighting until the Athenians sailed back. Xen H 113. For mode, consult general principle C 133. The indicative mode is used after heos, till, when an object is regarded as unattainable. 3. Of cause. When the ground or cause is expressed in the form of an adverb of time, the introductory conjunctions are hote, hopote, hos, epei, epeide. When in the form of a substantive, the conjunctions are hoti, dioti, diatuto hoti, hunica, tuto henica, or hothunica, hotu henica. Example, hote toinun tauthoutos eche, proseke, prothymos, ethelen akuein. When such is the case, it becomes, etc. Dem all one. 4. Of condition. The introductory conjunctions are ean, continuous, an. 3. The clause with the conjunction is termed the conditional, the other the consequent clause. 4. Every condition is viewed either as possible or impossible. Possibility is viewed as of certain, doubtful, or uncertain realization. Upon this difference in the condition rests the observance of the mode, which may be briefly stated as follows. 1. Possibility without any intimation of uncertainty, indicative in both clauses. Example, eituto leges hamartanes. 2. Possibility with some prospect of decision, consequently involving the idea of future time. Subjunctive, present generally, in the conditional clause, indicative future in the consequent clause. Example, ean tuto leges hamartesei. If you say this, you will err. 3. Possibility, viewed as a conceivable case, apart from its realization, the optative in both cases. Example, eiti echois doies an. 4. When the condition is viewed as not a reality, which is the case when reference is to the past, the indicative of the historical tenses in both clauses. Eiti eches, edidus an. This is virtually a denial of both the condition and the consequent, and consequently the same as an impossibility. 141. Coordinate sentences. 1. When sentences are so united as to present one connected thought, whilst each has its own independent construction, they are said to be coordinate. 2. Coordinate sentences are connected by the copulative or disjunctive conjunctions, or by the adversative particles men, de. 3. The conjunction e, besides its adversative force, has also a comparative use. E kata and e pros are used in the sense of the Latin quam pro, when an attribute belongs to an object in a higher or lower degree than could be expected in relation to another object. Example, meizo e kata dakrya pepontha. I have suffered too much for tears. E hoste, when the attribute is greater than accords with any preconceived notion. Example, e hoste epi peisidas ten paraskewen, greater than to be against, etc. Zen An 124. End of section 28. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. Recorded in Oxford, England.
Section 29 of an elementary Greek grammar by Kühner O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For further information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. An elementary Greek grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 29. Chapter 142. On the use of the most common adverbial and conjunctive particles. An, poetic ken, ke, contraction for ean, supposed root eao, corresponds to the conditional if. It accompanies subordinate clauses in all tenses except present and perfect indicative. Owing to the unconditional character of those tenses where an occurs in sentences containing them, it is to be referred to a dependent clause. Example: Uk an oit ei dynaimen, I hardly know if I am able. An belongs to the dependent dynaimen. It sometimes denotes that the verb of the preceding clause is to be repeated. Ara, aro, to suit. Primary meaning is suitable, appropriately, natural, in the course of things, natural order in narrative or chain of reasoning. It may be rendered by consequently, therefore, thereupon, as it seems, forsooth. In connection with individual terms, it corresponds to the English just, exactly. Tutara, just this. Homer uses it frequently as a connecting link between thoughts closely related and developed out of one another. This use is often without its corresponding English equivalent terms. An and ara never begin a clause. Ara, interrogative, signifies, is it that? I, again, moreover, on the contrary, further. From a to ara comes the compound aitar, but. It preserves, in part, the meaning of ara, intimating a close connection with what precedes. Yet, generally it has an adversative meaning like Allah. It introduces an objection and stands at the beginning of its clause, except when in connection with a vocative. Atar ephes, still thou didst say so. Gar, for, always explanatory, introduces a reason for something stated. Example: kai engar ho marathon epitedeotaton chorion, estutus phi kategeto. And to this place he led them, for Marathon was the most favorable position. Herodot 6:102. Kaigar may be rendered, and no wonder, and with reason for. Gar is compounded of ge, ara. Ge, enclitic, at least, limits and defines an object. Egoge, I at least. De, an affirmative strengthening particle, giving prominence and fullness to the word to which it is annexed, may be often correctly rendered by assuredly, truly. Its meaning, however, is not restricted to any one term in English, but is best rendered by any expression that gives corresponding prominence to the word to which de is added. Monos de, quite alone. Kratistoi de, the very best. De is joined to other particles, as pu, un, and in this connection corresponds to certain phrases, to be found in every language. Tis deun, who, pray, who, tell me. De pu, assuredly yes. alloi de, others, whoever they may be. Data from de has the limiting force of de. It corresponds to the Latin demum tandem. Ti data, what pray? Quid demum. De and ede as particles of time signify just now, just then, precisely at very time, etc. Kai te, latter enclitic, correspond to the Latin et que. Te is used in Greek where no copula is required in English. Its distinct and proper use seems to have been at first to add something secondary, whilst kai connects things equally important. Kai has also an intensive force, nay, also, especially. Te, kai, both and moreover, kai te, yet, besides, not only, but. Ma, ne, used in adjurations with the accusative of the object sworn by. Ma, negative, as ma ton dia, no by Jove. Ne, affirmative, ne ton dia, yes by Jove. The primary meaning of ne, sometimes nai, Latin nei, is truly, verily, indeed. It is often added to ma, as nai, ne, ma ton dia, assuredly no, etc. Men, de, serve to contrast two clauses. Men on the one hand, de on the other. Used to connect coordinate sentences, the clause with men is termed the protasis, or antecedent clause, that with de, apodosis, or consequent clause. With divisions of time they denote sometimes. Proton men epaita de, so they contrast number and place. To men, to de are sometimes used absolutely, partly on the one side, partly on the other. They sometimes simply connect clauses both and. Frequently, they are used where in our language connecting particles are not required, though they appear to give compactness to the sentence in Greek. Me, uk. These negatives differ in meaning as the indicative and subjunctive modes. That is, uk is used in negation of facts, denies objectively, me in the negation of conceptions, denies subjectively. Uk is to be used where a sentence contains a direct declaration. Hence, as a general rule, they accompany respectively those modes to which in principle they are allied. Uk also denies ground, cause, reason. Frequently accompanies the optative. Me is prohibitive, accompanies the imperative, and is the regular negative of the infinitive. Example: Hoti hoi barbaroi uig etetesan, hoi Hellenes ta hore u katelipon, because the barbarians were not, etc. Me graphe, me grapses, do not write. Polla menesti idein ta metis etelei, of such kind as one may not wish to see. When these negatives are joined to participles, it is intended that the participle partake of the idea characteristic of the negative. Example: ho upisteion, one who does not believe. Ho me pisteion, if one does not believe. Man denotes assurance, asseveration, etc. It is strengthened by which has a similar meaning. Example: hemen hos philois kai pistois kresestai autois, that he would assuredly treat them as friends. Xenophon, Cyropaedia 4:2-8. Nu, a particle of confirmation, forsooth, truly, certainly. Example, kai nu apoloito, and he would assuredly have perished. Etoi is of similar meaning. Un, wherefore, consequently, marks conclusion or the effect of a cause. Ukun, compound of uk, un, properly means not therefore. Its negative force is lost, however, unless when the accent is on uk. Otherwise, it means simply therefore. Per, enclitic, signifies through, throughout, altogether. Is attached to words that are to receive marked emphasis, and may be rendered by very. Hosper, the very person who. Hososper, precisely as much. Pu, of place, denotes where, somewhere, anywhere. It gives vagueness and indefiniteness to the idea it qualifies. Of causal signification denotes probability, detracting from the definiteness of the expression to which it is joined. It may be rendered by perhaps, if I mistake not, I ween. Pos, manner, used interrogatively, denotes how, otherwise it denotes in some certain manner or way. Often it is used by the dramatic writers in expressing wish, desire. Posan oloimen, would I could perish. Toi, enclitic, has the meaning truly, certainly, hence it is used as a confirmative particle. Remark: the Greek particles have not their equivalent terms in modern languages. Their force or meaning is best rendered by any expression, or even emphasis, that reflects in a word or phrase that shade of meaning given to it by the Greek particle. End of section 29.
Section 30 of An Elementary Greek Grammar by Kühner, O'Leary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Cynthia Moyer. An Elementary Greek Grammar by Raphael KÜHNER and Charles O'Leary. Section 30. Section 143. Accentuation. The general rules for the position of the accent have been given. Section 9. The following is a more detailed view of the same. 1. Words are divided according to the position of the acute accent into oxytones, with the acute on the final. Example, kakos. Paroxytones, with the acute on the penult. Example, tupto. Proparoxytones, with the acute on the antepenult. Example, anthropos. 2. According to the position of the circumflex into perispomena, with the circumflex on the final. Example, kakos. Properispomena, with the circumflex on the penult. Example, soma. For the influence of the quantity of the final syllable, see section 9. 3. The inflection endings omicron iota, alpha iota are short in relation to accent. Example, anthropoi, tuptetai. These endings of the optative are long. Example, timesai, eklepoi. The omega peculiar to the Ionic and Attic dialects is short in relation to accent. Example, poleos. Accentuation of the verb. 1. the accent recedes as far towards the beginning as possible, and this even in compounds. Example, timao, etimaon, fere, prosfere. 2. The syllable of the word prefixed that had the accent before composition retains it. Example, apodos, epides. Exceptions, parts of the verb that are oxytone and perispomena. 3. Final syllable has the circumflex in second aorist infinitive active. Example, to pain. Second aorist imperative middle. Example, labu. First and second aorist subjunctive passive. Example, tuptho, tupo. 4. Final syllable takes the acute in second aorist participle, masculine and neuter. Example, tupon, tupon. Second aorist imperative of 5 verbs, epe, elthe, hure, labe, ide. All participles in sigma, genitive, tos, tetufos, tufthes, except the first aorist participle active. Example, bouliusas. Paroxytones and properispomena. 5. The penult takes the acute or circumflex, according to section 9(8), in the following forms: perfect middle infinitive, tetufthai, pephileisthai, first aorist active, tupsai, timesai, second aorist middle, tupesthai. All infinitives in new alpha iota, tetuphenai, tufthenai, tithenai. Participles of perfect middle, bebuliumenos. Dual and plural of the aorists passive, subjunctive, tupthomen, tupomen. 6. In polysyllables which have a penult long by nature, the 3 corresponding forms of first aorist are distinguished as follows: infinitive first aorist active, bouliusai, properispomena. Optative first aorist active, bouliusai, paroxytone. Imperative first aorist middle, bouliusai, proparoxytone. When the penult is not long by nature, the infinitive and optative forms correspond. Example, phulaxai, infinitive, phulaxai, optative. In disyllables, the correspondence is obvious. Accentuation in contractions. 1. A contracted syllable is accented only when one of the syllables blended in it held the accent previous to contraction. Note: adjectives in omicron upsilon sigma, contracted from epsilon omicron sigma, though proparoxytones in the open form, take the circumflex on the contracted syllable. Example, chruseos contracts chrusus. End note. Example, philee contracts phile, but philee becomes philae. Note: the genitive plural and dual of trieres is paroxytone, contrary to rule. Triereon, trieron. Adjectives in accented eta, theta, eta, sigma have the same irregularity. End note. 2. When the contraction is in the penult, the accentuation conforms to the general rules. Section 9, 8. 3. A final contracted syllable has the following rules regarding the acute and circumflex. 4. An oxytone before contraction remains oxytone when contracted. Example: hestaos, hestos. 5. A paroxytone when contracted becomes paraspomenon. Example: phile, philei. Accentuation in connected discourse. 1. In sentences, oxytones receive the mark of the grave. Example: e me metrue pericales, heeriboia ein. The acute remains before every pause. Example: kuros e perase ton patamon, hoi de polemioi, etc. Crasis. 2. When crasis combines words, the acute of the second word is retained. Example: tagathon for to agathon. When the second word is a dissyllable and paroxytone with the final syllable short, the crasis syllable takes the circumflex. Example: tupos for to epos. Elision. 3. Accent is not taken away by elision, but is transferred to the preceding syllable, except in prepositions and in the adverbs oude, mede, alla. 4. When an oxytone preposition follows its noun, the accent recedes towards the noun. Example: maches epi for epimaches. This is called anastrophe. Proclitics and enclitics. 5. These are words that are so closely united, the former with words that follow them, the latter with words preceding them, that they are regarded as part of them in tone, and consequently forego their own independent accent. To the former belong the forms of the article ho, he, hoi, hai, the prepositions en, es, ek, hos, preposition and conjunction. Ek and hos, following their nouns, retain the accent. To the latter belong the verbs eimi, femi, in the present indicative except second person singular. The forms of the personal pronouns mu, moi, me, su, soi, se, hu, hoi, he. The duals svoin, plural, svisi. The indefinite tis in all its monosyllabic forms. The indefinite adverbs pos, po, pe, pu, pothi, pothen, poi, pote. The Attic particles te, toi, ge, nun, per. Section 144. Digamma. Its name, value. Proofs of its existence. 1. The digamma, sections 4 and 5, belonged to the early language and was preserved longest in the Aeolian dialect. In sound it answered to the English f or v. Its traces remain in many Latin words of Greek affinity under the character v. Example: oinos, vinum; oikos, vicus; ois, ovis; boes, bovis; naus, navis; edo, video. It was virtually the labial breathing, possessed like the lingual breathing sigma of the power of a consonant. As its use in the language declined, its place as a breathing was in some instances supplied by the aspirate, or by the sibilant sigma. This can be seen by comparing Latin words with their Greek kindred. Example: hesperos, vesperus, or those Homeric terms to which it belonged with the Latin terms of common origin. Example: hu, sui. Name: the name was originally bao or vau, called digamma from its resemblance in form to two gammas joined together. Proofs of its existence: it is preserved still in the numerical alphabet as the symbol of 6, marked by a character similar to stigma. This was its place in the regular alphabet, i.e., between zeta and eta. 2. In the language of the Homeric poems, certain words occur beginning with vowels, which occasion a hiatus with the final vowel of the preceding word, as apo-heo lipe de he. Apart from these concurrences, hiatus seldom happens, and it is therefore inferred that some sound of consonant character prevailed in Homer's time, which at a later period was dropped from the language. 3. Before these words, a vowel capable of elision is never elided. Example: Tarcesas mala epe theopropion hoti oista. Iliad, Alpha, 85. 4. Before these words, an ending syllable naturally short is lengthened, and a long vowel in the same position is never shortened. Example: eban oikonde hekastos. Iliad, Alpha, 606. Alpha nu is lengthened by position owing to nu and the digamma of oikon. Foikonde. Dominae helicopida. Felicopida. Alpha iota is preserved long by the digamma. 5. The preservation of vowel, digamma, in Latin words of common origin with the Greek. Digammated words of the Homeric poems. The pronoun forms hu, hoi, he. Agnumi, halis, halonai, anax, handano, araios, arna, astu, ear, where, eithera, edna, ethnos, eido, helisso, hekelos, heketi, eleo, volvo, epen, ekosi, ero, ergon, ergo, ekas, ekastos, eka, hekuros, hekon, elpo, eldomai, henumi, eoika, ero, eruo, hesperos, estes, etos, elikopis, ethos, hedus, etosios, eira, eche, iache, iris, is, vis, ifi, itus, isos, ulamos, ulos, olx, ilion, ion. The end. End of section 30. End of an elementary Greek grammar based on the latest German edition of Kühner by Charles O'Leary.